what's going to happen with those who don't wake up? They just die off. Like, you're just like with many other things that happened. It's just like, yeah, there's no more need for them. They cannot be able to adapt to these situations. And that's why also, coming back to runes, they help to um, stay on the path. In other words, I see magic as things that help you to deal with time itself. Time is the first measure we use for anything in this reality.
Mm.
And so with runes, I give this example a lot. Is like when, let's say you have a certain karmic debt you need to deal with, or a lesson you need to learn, right? And the plan is for you to, by your higher self and your guides and everybody, they give you, let's say, like 10 years to deal with it, right? Well, from 5 to 10 years, let's put it this way. Yeah, they're going to create certain events in your life, so you're going to have to go through this lesson and learn it for yourself one way or the other. Well, with runes, you can learn it in a year or 2 years or 3, because it will enhance, like you would stop losing that energy. Just like with an example that I mentioned about me asking the runes, if I would have listened to the runes, right, I would have saved that half a year of my life. Some argue, well, yeah, but I met these people, like I had this experience and it was good in the end. And I'm like, yeah, but my question is this: are you here to have this experience then, or are you actually here to create something valuable? Like, aren't you here to actually spend your energy effectively? Are you here to like stop wasting your energy? Because when we actually, this is the other thing that I find that, and my friends from Germany joke a lot, is like, oh, you should write this a book, Superstitions of Dimitri. Because, but it's kind of like all of like Feng Shui, like you should, lock the door in the toilet, put in the, like all these things that, all this, like you have like Slavic, or they call it Slavic, but like superstitions that you shouldn't do that or that. But if you look in the energy behind them, all of them make sense. And all of them are directed towards you saving the energy. Like, will you survive? Will it hurt if you, like, no, it's not gonna hurt, but you're gonna waste the energy, waste. And then in the end, you're not gonna have enough energy to do what you need to do, kind of, in a sense. So with runes, they put you back into the seat of where you're like, okay, I need this and this and this. Sure, you go and activate. And trust me, like the first times I did it, and one of the first energy clearings I did with runes, which is basically you pick up a rune stave. There's like a whole ritual, activation text and everything. But you go through it, you kind of. And then when I activated it, I think I was like, for 2 days, I was like, like not sick, but like you were like, I'm lying on the bed and like can't get up, and all kinds of weird stuff in my head, and it's like, what's happening? And I'm like, look, like seriously, all you took a certain symbol, you draw on it, you did, and this is what the reaction of your body, how that kind of works from that. So to answer your question, or like to add to that answer, like I see runes as a certain benchmark or etalon representing a certain frequency or certain energy. And depending, again, if you're working with one, with two, combination, or like a stave, then and with the stave, it's a little bit extra because it also depends on who put together the stave.
Yeah.
So because it has like, I have like a list of practitioners that I personally use, the ones I'm sharing in the community, and also, by the way, if you have any okay, I think my mind is foggy, like I need more clarity, type in the community. I'll send you like several rune things that you can do yourself, just quick ones, right? Or whatever, like quit smoking, or I don't know, like who more like, okay, I need to clean my financial flow, or improve relationship with my kids or grandkids, or they're acting weird, Well, there's like literally, and the thing with drones is like, okay, if I cannot find the stave, which would be interesting because there's like a lot on for a certain purpose. Guess what? You can always create your own, which I always encourage as well. That's why I created several of my own for certain purposes, because then they have your signature.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly. Yeah.
so you're not just using some. And again, and some people like my teacher, for example, as well. She's like, no, if I start creating stuff, I'll be creating all the kind of destructive stuff. So like, I'm just gonna use somebody else's. Yeah, that was like her. For me, it's like, okay, because it also takes time. You're putting things together, and then you check. And so in a sense, runes are
Mm.
also a closed system, but they're a closed system in a different way. I
Mm.
will give you like, again, like an example, like how would I create a stave as an example, right? So, well, actually, yeah, I'll describe this stave, and I'm going to post it on community as well, because I was planning to do it anyway. So I created this. I wanted to help people find their true wishes, because a lot of times what people wish for, they don't even know what it is. And somebody else's programs, like your mom always wanted you to be a pianist or something, and you're like, oh, I want to be a pianist. Like, no, you don't. So it's like, it's not even yours, right? Or society makes you need money, you need this, like, you need to have the resources, you need to find what you're going to have the money for, but not the money itself, because it's a bigger topic. But in general, so the idea was to create this tape, to um to bring a person to their true wishes. And then I was like, all right, so you have, let's so you start from somewhere. And I go, okay, every human has like three parts of their life: mind, body, and spirit. Right? And the way I see body, okay, the physical part. Mind, I always see this society, as because society kind of, what our social matrix is, what our mind creates. And then you have the spiritual realm. So you have the three parts of it. And again, okay, so what I want to do, I want people to connect to their spirit. I want to enhance their presence in the society, and I want to strengthen their body. And when that happens, they start to be themselves, right? So and again, I'll send this stave in the community. You'll be able to see, and also test it for yourself. Uh, and when I put it together, and the funniest thing happened was like, and I started to test it on myself, and it brought me to this state, as I call, like, the modern way of here and now. Like this inner dialogue in my head: should I do this or should, like, it kind of disappeared almost. It was like, go wash the dishes. Like, all right, go take a nap. All right. Like, you're always know what is the most effective way of you spending your energy today. And that's kind of like, okay, this is your true wishes in the point. But then kind of a new name for this Dave also came in, was like Veni Vidi Vici, as in, like, you came, you conquered, right? So it brings you to that state. And from time to time, it's nice to check in with your self in that state. But also, for example, when the first time I was activating it for myself, I think like in 3 days, I got started to have a headache, just because, well, it was hard at that point to be in that state for a long time. Now it's like, yeah, I can put it in, live off it, and kind of, it becomes you as well. But also important part about, so with runes, it becomes a closed system, because, okay, so now I created the stave, right? And before even using it or testing it, which is possible, you can test it on yourself and see the results, kind of research, okay, this works better, blah blah blah. But before I even started using it as a safety measure, I ask runes how the stave is gonna work.
Mm.
So I use runes to create a stave, and then I use divination with runes, and goes like, how this stave is gonna, you know. And they say, great, no, because when you create a stave, like, you have several variations, right? Because you can use this rune or this rune, like, what would be a best combination? So out of all the combinations, you ask runes, what should be the best one, and they tell you. So it's kind of becomes a loop in itself, right?
Mm.
So that's kind of what also resonated with me a lot, to just to use it. It has made so much sense, and it was so much like magic in it, because um, and it can be used in combination with candle magic, with all kinds of. It's not. It doesn't go against any other things. It just enhances. That's why, as I said, like graphic magic in general is a very underrated tool, and people go like also another important part was when it comes to runes, or at least how I work with them, which was now I'm kind of understanding why people would be saying that. But like a lot of times when I was in Germany, it's like, oh, send me a rune, and I'm like, what do you mean? I don't understand. What do you mean? It's like, well, send me the energy of the rune, and I couldn't understand because like the way for activation of the rune stave, yeah, visualization is a very basic way, as you said. You looked at the runes and boom, they're in your field, they're like present. But that's energetic. The way you activate it, you always have a material carrier with the runes. So you ground them, or you create an amulet, or you activate it. You still write it on a sheet of paper or whatever, metal, all kinds of other ways, right? Uh, just visualizing that, uh, great. But when you have like like very complicated staves, like the ones I sent also in the community, like those are like very like mandalas type looking. Yeah,
Yep.
like you're not gonna be able to visualize it properly with all the
No.
things.
No.
So you activate it using the elements, and this is the other thing with runes. Lots of knowledge was lost. So honestly, nobody can say what is the correct way to work with them, right? There are some ways that be used in practice and they reached results, right? Also coming back to actually answering the question as to the sound of the runes. The true sound of the runes are also from what is known is we lost it. We don't know how runes really sounded. We only have those kind of their names, Feihu, Uruz, Pertu, and so on, like their names that we have in our language. So chanting them is another way of activating or bringing them. So for example, when I activate a stave, when I write like that formula, the Manaz, Kenaz, Laguz, and Feihu, I chant the runes. But with the chant, because I spend some time connecting with each of the runes, it brings out that energy.
Mm.
I also, like for the course, I also created the magic eye pictures, the 3D stuff. So I created each for each rune. So you can like there's you can just print it out and look at it, and you have a 3D model of the rune to meditate on, because you automatically your brain gets into that state. So yeah, visualization is one very basic way of activating it. But when you start to do it as a full ritual,